I declare this special council meeting of the Monday, 6th November 2023, open at 7 p.m. And I welcome councillors, staff, and members of the gallery. I'd also like to acknowledge that the meeting is being held on the traditional land of the Noongar people, and I pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. Can I please advise all members of the gallery that this meeting will be audio recorded in accordance with our council policy. If you're asking a public question or making a statement or deputation to the meeting, this will be audio recorded. Members of the public are reminded that no other visual or audio recording of this meeting by any other means is allowed. Apologies for the meeting. I've received apologies from Councillor Bias. No other apologies have been received. Item number 2 on the agenda is public question time. There have been no written questions submitted to council, but I do ask any members of the public whether they would like to come forward and ask any questions. Thank you. Item number 3 on the agenda is public statement time. Again, there were no public statements received, but I would ask any member of the public who would like to make a public statement to please come forward now to the lectern. Item number 4 is petitions and deputations, which there are nil. Item number 5 on the agenda is declarations of elected members and officers' interests. There is one for this evening, and that is in relation to item 6.2. The Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Paul Martin, declared impartiality interest in that item, as that item pertains to appointment of members to the CEO Employment Committee. The nature of the interest is that Mr. Martin is, or the committee deals with matters pertaining to the employment of Mr. Martin. The extent of the interest is that he is the CEO. Item number 6 on the agenda, 6.1, is appointment of members to the Audit, Risk and Governance Committee. We have received 2 nominations to this committee prior to the meeting commencing this evening, and they are from myself, President Rob Coles, and also Councillor Shane Mack. Are there any other councillors who'd like to nominate for the Audit, Risk and Governance Committee?
President Coles, I'd like to nominate, please.
That's Councillor Duggan.
Thank you.
Are there any other nominations?
Question, if I may. Are we going straight to passing option 1 rather than calling for a mover to pass option 2?
I've only indicated the nominations we have received, Councillor Mack. If you'd like to move one of the recommendations, whether it's option 1 or 2, I'm minded to allow you to do that if you'd like to do that.
In that case, I'd like to move a motion to pass option 2 for all 7 councillors and 2 external members.
Thank you, Councillor Mack. Is there a seconder for option 2 of the officer's recommendation?
I'm happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Are there anyone or any members opposed?
Mr. President, can we ask who the external people are before the council votes on the matter?
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Councillor Mack, do you have those names there?
The officers made 2 recommendations.
Would you happy to move with the officer's recommendations?
So attachment 3.
So as per the 2 recommended, or as per the officer's recommendation?
As per the officer's recommendation on attachment 3.
Thank you, Councillor Mack. Councillor Duggan, are you happy to second that motion?
I'm happy, thanks.
Thank you. Is there any councillors opposed to that motion? That being the case, that motion is passed unanimously.
Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. That brings us to agenda item 6.2, which is appointment of members of the CEO Employment Committee. Do I have a council like to move either of the officers' recommendations?
President Coles, I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Is there a councillor who's happy to second? And that's the officer's recommendation as per the screen.
I'm happy to second that, Rob.
Thank you, Councillor Bishop. Is there any councillors opposed to the motion? Thank you, councillors. That is passed unanimously. Item 6.3 is appointment of members of the Rivers Regional Council and appointment of Rivers Regional Subsidy Deputy. Are there any councillors who'd like to move the officer's recommendation? I have received, I think, one nomination from Councillor Mack.
Mr. President, we would need a second member. So the calls for 2 members and 2 deputies. So we've got one from Councillor Mack. We would need a second one from somebody else, and then the 2 deputies.
A question, if I may, just ask, have we heard from our current sitting member whether he wished to nominate?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Mack. I did email Councillor Bice, but haven't had a response back. I am minded to defer the matter to the next council meeting so a decision can be made in terms of whether we extend that invitation and nomination to Councillor Bice, considering he's been there for 6 years.
And I'll be happy to motion to defer.
Are you happy to move that, Councillor Mack?
Yes.
And is there a second to defer the motion?
I'll second that, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councillor Bishop. Anyone opposed to deferring the motion? Thank you. The motion will be deferred. Item 6.4 is the appointment of members of the Bushfire Advisory Committee. There has been 2 nominees received, and that being Councillor Nathan Bishop and Councillor Shay Mack. Are there any other nominations that have been received?
Sorry, none received, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. CEO.
But open to others to nominate now if they wish.
That being the case, can I have a councillor to move that Councillor Nathan Bishop and Councillor Shay Mack are the 2 councillors that will be appointed to the Bushfire Advisory Committee?
I'm happy to move President Coles, option 1 with the names mentioned. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Is there a seconder for the motion?
I'm happy to second that, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councillor Jarrett. Is anyone opposed to Councillor Bishop and Councillor Mack being appointed to the Bushfire Advisory Committee? Thank you. That motion is passed unanimously. Item 6.5 is the appointment of members of the Local Emergency Management Committee. There has been, I think, 2 nominations received, Mr. CEO. I submitted a nomination, and I believe Councillor Nathan Bishop submitted a nomination as well.
That's correct, Mr. President. You're on there already, so we haven't recorded yours there, but Councillor Bishop's certainly is there, and the terms of reference appoint you to that group automatically.
Okay, thank you, Mr. CEO. Is there someone who's happy to move the Shire President and Councillor Bishop to be the 2 representatives on the Local Emergency Management Committee?
We don't need to move it.
I'm happy to move option 1 with Councillor Bishop's name.
And we need
And is there someone who'd like to nominate as a deputy?
I'm happy to nominate as deputy if required, President Coles.
Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Is there a seconder for that motion? Don't need a seconder?
Councillor Mack moved it. Yep. Councillor Mack moved. Councillor Mack moved the motion and Councillor Duggan's the deputy, as I understand. And
Yeah.
Councillor Bishop.
That's correct.
Are you happy with that, councillor Mack? Anyone opposed to my, councillor Mack moved it and councillor Duggan, you happy to second it?
I'm happy to second. Thanks,
you.
President Coles.
So is anyone opposed to myself and councillor Bishop being the two nominees for local management committee with councillor Duggan as a deputy? That motion is passed unanimously. Item 6.6 on the agenda is nominations of delegates for the Minister for Planning's consideration for the Metropolitan Outer Joint Development Assessment Panel, MOJAP. There has been two nominations received, that's being the President, Rob Coles, and Councillor Shane Mack. Are there any other nominations? We also need two deputies, I believe.
That's correct, Mr. President.
Oh, sorry, alternate members.
President Coles, I'm happy to nominate as an alternate member. Thanks.
Is there anyone else who'd like to nominate to be an alternate member?
I'll nominate, Mr. President.
So the motion we have forward then is for Councillor Shane Mack, President Rob Coles, with the alternate members being Councillor Duggan and Councillor Bishop. Is there someone that's happy to move that motion?
I'm happy to move. Thanks, President Coles.
Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Is there a seconder?
I'm happy to move that, President Coles.
Thank you, Councillor Jarrett. Is there anyone opposed to the motion? Motion is passed unanimously. Thank you. That brings us to item 6.7, which is appointments to the West Australian Local Government Association Peel Country Zone and voting delegates to the Wolga Annual General Meetings in 2024 and 2025. There has been two nominations received, which was from myself being the Shire President, Rob Coles, and I believe Councillor Duggan also submitted a nomination. Were there any other nominations?
None are received to date, Mr. President, but anyone else is welcome to nominate now if they wish. And we do need a deputy, obviously.
Is anyone prepared to nominate for deputy?
I'll be happy to nominate as deputy.
Thank you, Councillor Mack. And the second part of the motion is we need two nominees to be the voting delegates and then two proxy voting delegates. I would suggest that it's the President and Councillor Duggan as the voting delegates, unless someone else would like to nominate. And then we need two proxy voting delegates.
I'd be happy to nominate as a proxy delegate as well.
That's Councillor Mack, and then we need another councillor to be another voting proxy.
I'm happy to nominate to be another proxy, President Coles.
Thank you, Councillor Jarrett. So at the moment, we have the two nominees to the Wolga Peel Country Zone being the President and Councillor Duggan, with a deputy being Councillor Mack, and then part two then of the motion is nominates the President and Councillor Duggan as voting delegates, and then Councillor Mack and Councillor Jarrett as the respective proxy voting delegates. Is there a councillor that's happy to move that motion?
I'm happy to move that motion. Thanks, President Coles.
Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Is there a seconder?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Bishop. Is anyone opposed to that motion? Thank you. The motion is passed unanimously. Item 6.8 on the agenda is appointments to the Equine Advisory Group. I believe, Mr. CEO, there were some nominees or nominations received. Can I just confirm that there were two nominees received?
I haven't got any record of nominees received from councillors for the Equine Advisory Group.
Okay, are there any nominations from councillors?
I'd like to nominate for the Equine Advisory
Councillor
Group.
Jarrett? Are there any other nominees who would like to be a part of the Equine Advisory Group?
I'm happy to nominate too. Thanks, President Coles.
So that's Councillor Jarrett, Councillor Duggan. Then we need to appoint 2 deputy members.
I'm happy to nominate, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councillor Bishop. And Councillor Mack, are you happy to be?
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Mack. And I think we need to then appoint 8 external members, and there is a officer's recommendation to that. Bearing in mind that's confidential items, we don't need to talk about the people unless you want to, and if that is the case, we'll have to go behind closed doors. So as it is at the moment, we've got Councillor Jarrett, Councillor Duggan, with Councillor Bishop and Councillor Mack as the deputies, and then as per the officer's recommendation for the external members. Can I have a mover for that motion?
Happy to move. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Duggan, and
President
Councillor
Coles.
Bishop, are you happy to second?
Yeah, I am, Mr. President.
Thank you. Is anyone opposed to that motion? Thank you. That motion is passed unanimously. Item 6.9 is the Access and Inclusion Advisory Group, appointment of community members. I have received 1 nomination, which is from Councillor Mack, and I think there may have been another one later this afternoon, if I remember.
Haven't seen that, Mr. President, but happy to take any nominations now.
Okay, so we've got Councillor Mack. Are there any other councillors like to be involved or included in the Access and Inclusion Advisory Committee?
I'm happy to nominate. Thanks, President Coles.
Thank you, Councillor Duggan. And also, we need to appoint the external members. Thank you. So Councillor Duggan, Councillor Mack. Are there any councillors who would like to be appointed as a deputy member for the Access and Inclusion Advisory Group?
I'm happy to nominate to be deputy.
Thank you, Councillor Jarrett. Councillor Bishop, are you happy to be a deputy?
I am.
Thank
Mr.
you.
President.
Thank you, Councillor Bishop. And apologies, we now come to the part of the external members. Again, it's confidential attachment number 2. Is someone happy to move the motion as it stands with Councillor Duggan and Councillor Mack as the 2 members of council, with Councillor Jarrett and Councillor Bishop as the deputies, and the as per the officer's recommendation with the external members?
I'm happy to move. Thanks, President Coles.
Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Is there a seconder?
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Council President Coles.
Thank you, Councillor Jarrett. Is there anyone opposed to the motion? Motion is passed unanimously. Item 6.10 is the appointment of community representatives to the Kiernan Park Stakeholder Reference Group. We have received 1 nomination, and that is for a deputy member for Councillor Mack. Are there any nominations from councillors who'd like to be involved in the Kiernan Park Stakeholder Reference Group?
President Coles, I'm happy to be a member of the Kiernan Park Stakeholders Reference Group. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Are there any other councillors who'd like to be involved in the Kiernan Park Stakeholder Reference Group?
President Coles, I'm happy to nominate.
Thank you, Councillor Jarrett. Now we need to nominate 2 deputy members as well. Obviously, Councillor Mack has indicated he'd like to be a deputy member. Councillor Bishop.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. President, just as a reminder, the officers, when we issued the report, recommended appointing the 6 external members. We did receive a late nomination, which I circulated to councillors on Friday from Dave Atwell. If the councillors wanted to do that, council could move the motion with point 3 and include Dave Atwell in that. So it appoints 6 external members and Dave Atwell to the Kiernan Park Stakeholder Group, or council could just move and deal with the motion as it is now.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Is there a councillor who would like to make the amendment to paragraph 3 to include to include Dave Atwell?
President Coles, I'm happy to move the motion with that amendment. Thanks.
With that amendment, thank you, councillor Duggan. Is there a seconder to include Dave Atwell as an external member to the Keenan Park Stakeholder Group?
I'll second that, Mr. President.
Thank you, councillor Bishop. Is anyone opposed to that? Motion is passed unanimously. Agenda item 6.11 is Citizen of the Year Awards and Kentish Award Judging Panel appointment of members. Is anyone happy, or is any councillor happy to move the officer's recommendation?
I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation. Thanks, President Coles.
Thank you, councillor Duggan. Is there a seconder?
I'll second that, President Coles.
Thank you, councillor Jarrett. Is anyone opposed to the officer's recommendation? Motion is passed unanimously. Item 6.12 is elected member appointments of various groups. There are various groups as per the agenda. We have received one nomination from councillor Shay Mack to be included in the South East Metropolitan Regional Road subgroup. Are there any other nominations? So if we break it down and go through each one first, the first one is the South East Metropolitan Regional Road Group. So we've got councillor Mack. Are there any other nominations?
Mr. President, it might be worth just advising councillors that these are the groups that have asked to have a council representative on them. You're not obliged to appoint councillors to all the groups. So that's entirely up to how the council wants to deal with it.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. So if we deal with the South East Metro Regional subgroup first, we've got one nomination from councillor Mack. Are there any other nominations from other councillors?
I'm happy to be the deputy for 6B, which is the South East Metropolitan Regional Road subgroup. If you could consider my nomination, please.
Thank you, councillor Duggan. So that's 6B. Is there anyone else who'd like to be a member for the South East Metropolitan Regional Road subgroup? We can just have the one, can't we, Mr. CEO?
Yes, it only requires one there. So each of those are just one. So 6A is one, 6B is one. They're only individual council members. So you'll see that 1A, the Peel Harvey Biosecurity Group, has a nominee and a deputy. 2 is the South East Regional Energy Group, has a nominee and a deputy. 3 is the same. 4 just has one nomination. 5 has a member and a deputy. So council might like to just work its way through, and then you could consider them as one whole motion if you're of mind to do. We could break them up if you wanted to break them up as individual motions.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. So if we go through the list, so the first one is 1A, which is any members who would like to nominate for a delegate to the Peel Harvey Biosecurity Group.
I'm happy to nominate for that position.
Councillor Jarrett, thank you. Then we need to find a deputy for councillor Jarrett for the Peel Harvey Biosecurity Group.
President Coles, I'm happy to nominate as a deputy. Thanks.
Thank you, councillor Duggan. 2A then is the South East Regional Energy Group. We need a delegate for that, then a deputy.
President Coles, if I may nominate for 2A, please.
So councillor Duggan as the delegate to the South East Regional Energy Group. Is there a councillor who would like to nominate to be the deputy?
I'll nominate to be the deputy, President Coles.
Thank you, councillor Bishop. The 3A then is a delegate to the Darling Range Regional Park Advisory Group. Is there any councillors like to nominate for the Darling Range Regional Park Advisory Group?
President Coles, I'm happy to nominate.
Thank you, councillor Duggan. And then we need a deputy for the Darling Range Regional Park Advisory Group.
I'm happy to nominate for that.
Thank you, councillor Jarrett. That brings us to number 4, which is a elected member to be on the Peel Harvey Catchment Council for the Peel Harvey Catchment Council Board. Are there any nominations for that?
I'll nominate for that position.
Thank you, Councillor Jarrett. And then 5A is the Keysbrook Community Consultative Group. We need an elected member for that. Are there any nominations?
President Coles, I'm happy to nominate for that position. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Duggan. That brings us to 5B, which is a deputy for the Keysbrook Community Consultative Group. I'm happy to be a deputy of Councillor Jarrett. Would you like it? Okay, I'm happy to be the deputy. Thank you. And then 6A was Councillor Mack, and then 6B was Councillor Duggan. Can I please have a councillor to move all those nominations and deputies?
I'll move, President Coles.
Thank you, Councillor Bishop. Is there a seconder?
Happy to second. Thanks, President Coles.
Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Are there any councillors that are opposed to that motion? Thank you. That motion is passed unanimously. That brings us to item 7 on the agenda, which is motions of which notice have been given, which there is nil. Item number 8 is urgent business, which there is nil. There being no further business, I declare the meeting closed at 7:27 p.m. And I thank you everyone for your attendance tonight.